Put the countdown. Maybe give it 30 seconds. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Welcome to House of Horns. This is your Rams post game show. My name is Victor Corona, and AKA Vic the producer. Joining me today is Gilbert Manzano from the OC Register, Ellie Daily News. And this was not what we were expecting today, Gilbert. Give us your first takeaways from tonight's loss to the Bills, from the Rams 31-10 loss to the Bills.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. A surprising outcome to this game between two Super Bowl contenders, the Rams and the Buffalo Bills, 31-10. Right? They
Mm-hmm.
went scoreless in the second half, 21 unanswered by the Bills. And I guess I'll just start off with one of my one-on-one interviews. Is from Leonard Floyd. The way he just spoke to me and the tone that he had, he just felt like, man, what happened out there? How did we get beat so bad? Um, it was more of self reflection. I'm like, okay, we have to wake up. There was a championship banner ceremony. The Rock was out there. Ozzy Osbourne was out there. It was supposed to be their night, and they got beat pretty badly. So I think it was a wake up call, Victor. It was more like, okay, there's 16 games. That team is really good. That team is not in our division or our conference. So that's kind of the positive of it. But it was definitely an unexpected beatdown, you could say, on a championship night.
Yeah, they just look flat. I think mostly it was because of, them celebrating the Super Bowl. They weren't used to something like this. I mean, it was just like the second half. Like, I mean, they were able to capitalize on four turnovers and keep the game close in the first half, and then in the second half, the Bills just ran them off the field. Like, they weren't even in it in the second half, which was tough to watch in the second half. It looked like they didn't even want to be there anymore. And I mean, the other thing you have to keep in mind is the Bills are a team on a mission. And this is what happens when you run into a team, your first game, who's on a mission, the team is on a mission. And this is what we saw, is a team on a mission with Josh Allen at the helm.
Yeah, you always hear the cliche, like they're the hungry team, or the new cliche. They have that dog in them, and which I hate to say. But you could tell, like they were like even on the Stephon Diggs 53-yard touchdown where he beat Jalen Ramsey pretty badly. He was trash talking. He's like he remembers that Jalen Ramsey's a trash talker. You got to get in his face. You got to go after when you go after the king, you better not miss, right, Victor?
Right?
So they had that mentality, especially when it was like 10-10, and even towards the end of the third quarter, it was still very close. And I think there was like a spark there, Victor, where Josh Allen scrambled to his right. He beat a man. He met Bobby Wagner at the goal line, stretched it out like he was Michael Jordan in Space
Jordan,
Jam,
yep.
and got over it. And it just shows you like you could try so many things to try to stop Josh Allen. Even a guy like Bobby Wagner, a short tackler who's done it for his Hall of Fame career, couldn't wrap him up. And then he just
Yeah.
stretched it out. And even guys who stretch out the ball like that, it's dangerous because it could be a fumble. Not for him. He's a guy who makes it work. So after that, it was a snowball effect. I think the throw to Stephon Diggs was right after that, and even on the first opening drive of the second half, Victor, he had a nasty stiff arm on Nick Scott, and that was a
Yeah.
touchdown too. So it felt like they just never got in rhythm offensively, the Rams. So it just snowballed very quickly towards the end of that third quarter.
I was gonna ask you, where do you want to start in terms of like the good or the bad of the game? Like, I can give you a bunch of stats, and just run them down. Just like Stafford getting sacked 3 times, 7 times, throwing 3 interceptions. I mean, it was just bad. Like Jalen Ramsey's, what was his PFF rating was bad today. He gave up 6 receptions on 7 targets for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was just bad today. And I guess I'll mention some of the positives, so it's not all bad. Cooper Cup was great tonight. He like he his standard 13 catches for 128 yards. You had the Matt Gay 57-yard field goal, which was nice at the end of the first half. And then the 4 turnovers, which was in the first half. I think it looked like Raheem Morris made the adjustment in the first half, but like I said, in the second half, it just wasn't there.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with the Rams offense because I've been talking about the Rams defense trying to stop Josh Allen, which is a nightmare for anybody. But it's a little surprising how sluggish this offense was. We haven't even mentioned Allen Robinson. That's how quiet this guy was. debut with the Rams, one catch for 12 yards. When he got that one catch was when he set up it was like second and 14, or no, it was third and 14, and it became fourth and two, and that's when Stafford threw it to Cooper Cup. Coleman Shelton gave him the push to get the first down, and you're thinking, okay, here's some spark because right after Cooper Cup had that nice 3-footer to get in the corner end zone. Because when I looked at the replay, I'm like, oh, he didn't get one. He only got 1 foot down. He didn't get two on the touchdown. You see the replay, oh, it was three. So who am I to
Mm,
doubt Cooper Cup? But after that,
right.
you thought they'll get it going, but they never got the rushing attack going. All this conversation about a balance, there was no balance, Victor. It was Daryl
No.
Henderson being the lead back. We don't know about Cam Akers, because I'm like, why don't you use the guy? Is he injured? But I spoke to Cam Akers in the locker room. He said I'm healthy. Sean McVay hasn't brought up that he's not healthy. So I guess the game plan was Daryl Henderson and nobody else, because we don't even know how Kyron Williams got hurt. We got to watch the film. Maybe he got hurt on the kickoff, because it was like the first drive and it was already an injury report on Kyron Williams, ankle injury, questionable. So it was just pretty much Gerald Henderson. And then the offensive line, like that's the thing. Like you wait until the games start playing to assess, because the offensive line, has two new starters, Joe Noteboom and Coleman Shelton, and they appeared like a new offensive line. Von Miller really got after them, 2 sacks, and then the 7 sacks total. And then I don't know. Do we blame it on Stafford because he didn't have much time out there? He didn't have other receivers step up, besides Cooper Cup, and then he was surprised about them playing cover three. He called it a Stone Age kind of defensive scheme, even though the Seahawks actually made that popular not too long ago, 10 years ago. Now it's kind of that single high safety, that two the two shell scheme that Vic Fangio made famous, but the
Mhm.
cover three really threw him off, and he was just confused, like, okay, like who's going to play this old defense, and it worked. So it was just a very surprising effort for the offense all around.
Yeah, and I know McVay put the blame on himself, and I mean that's great and all. But if we're gonna talk about this, we have to go over the fact that that offensive line didn't look great. The other thing was Cam Akers only getting 3 carries isn't great. I mean, the offensive line looked pretty bad, and then we have to talk about Stafford's elbow, like, or his arm, whatever it is, that he did not push the ball down the field. That was something that stood out to me. Like, we didn't see, not the fact that he didn't target Allen Robinson for, what was it, 2 times. He didn't push the ball at all. And then the other thing was that I read a stat where when he gets blitzed less than 10% of the time, as a Ram, they're 0-3. And the Bills, I saw one stat that said they blitzed once. I saw another stat that said they didn't blitz at all today on 49 dropbacks. So there you go. That was your game right there.
Yeah, that was one of the key stats. Is like if you get organic four-man pressure on Stafford, that helps you out, because when you blitz, he's so smart. He's gonna take advantage of the mismatch or the less numbers out there on the field. So they did it organically with Von Miller, and that's why they paid the guy. That's why they raised the offer to 6 years, $120 million to get that, because Victor, last year that shootout between the Bills and the Chiefs was like just back and forth. They couldn't get any pressure on Patrick Mahomes. You get a pass rusher out there, maybe the game is different. So the Bills got early results on their investment there, and it just affected the former team of Von Miller. One thing that stood out from, I'm probably right about this, but I had a good one-on-one with Leonard Floyd, and he's like, yeah, it hurt seeing Von Miller in a different jersey. Like, it felt like they let that one go slip away. And he said he went over to Von Miller after the game, and he was like, your quarterback is good. You won the battle, but you're not gonna win the war. Kind of like, okay,
Right.
I took it on the chin, and I miss you, big dog. But then it's a lot of football to be left. But yeah, you're right, man. That Von Miller pressure was really a problem for Matthew Stafford, and I guess, yeah, we could go talk about the elbow thing. I'm sure it will come up at his next presser. Like, how did he feel the next day? Why weren't you pushing down the field? And I think it could be multiple things. It could be the bad offensive line play. It could be only Cooper Cup and nobody else stepping up. It could be this weird coverage that really affected Allen Robinson out there. We never saw Tutu Atwell. We didn't see Tyler Higbee. Uh,
Yeah.
Ben Skoranek got targeted 6 times, and I think Tyler Higbee 5 times, and Robinson only 2. That's not something you should be doing for a guy you sign as your big prize free agent. So, uh, yeah, I guess for me, I was thinking like, okay, they're gonna try to get Odell Beckham Jr., but I'm like, man, they kind of already look nice on roster. But when you have a game like that, okay, bring out Odell Beckham and maybe you could provide a spark. And he was out there today for the championship banner ceremony. But uh, they'll play the Falcons next year. I mean, sorry, next week. They might
Right.
feel like it's a year to get back on the field with the 10 days off, but they get the Falcons to kind of assess there on offense. But so far, it was just a bad night. Maybe you throw the film out the way.
Yeah, it was a bad matchup, honestly. Like one of the things that stood out from the Rams last year was they kind of went into a lull in the middle of the season. They lost like three in a row, and then they seem to find themselves. So they'll get better as they go. But today was just a bad matchup for them, and in a team that scouted them well. And I think this is where you need preseason. You should play your guys, and this is something that is gonna you'll see a lot this weekend because everybody's doing it now. Like, not a lot of teams are playing their players in the preseason, and you're gonna see the sloppiness. That's why you had so many turnovers in the first half, was because these two teams, the Bills did. They played Josh Allen in the preseason, and they're taking it seriously. And this is what happens. It's that whole what's the boxer's name that said, "Hey, like once you start sleeping in silk pajamas, it changes the game
Yeah.
for you." And I think this is what
Marvin
happened.
Hagler. Marvin Hagler,
Yeah,
Victor.
yeah, Marvin Hagler, and that's what happens, man. Like, you get a little too happy, and you get punched in the mouth, and that's what happens today. The Bills were ready for the Rams.
Yeah, that's part of it, man. Maybe you don't feel like you're too big headed. You don't feel like you're cocky. You feel like you're prepared, and then you're out there, and it's like, oh man, we got to keep up with this Bills team that has a lot of chemistry, especially with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. And the toughest thing is like, okay, this guy has the strongest arm probably in the NFL. Him, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. You could debate all you want, but he's athletic too. He's big. Just create so many plays on the scrambles and the rollout. That we hadn't even. It was so long ago, Victor. But that fake out on the I want to say the 3rd and 1 on the first drive. Everybody bit on the fake run.
Ramsey was the
Yeah,
biggest corporate there.
yeah,
Yeah,
there we go. That's
yeah,
another one. And he rolled out to his right, found Gabe Davis open for a 26-yard touchdown. That just gets in your head. And I think Bobby, that was my story. That was my lead. Check it out, the OC Register, by the way. I just
there you
filed
go.
it. Uh, it was that Bobby, I think there was like chatter, Elena, our guest,
Yeah,
from me, she said that they're going to run on Bless. And that was presented to Bobby Wagner in the locker room. He's like, yeah, right. This is what makes this offense dangerous is the just the possibility of running, design plays, misdirections, and it burned them right there. And then
yeah.
Bobby Wagner was honest, like, yeah, like first he was like, yeah, we got to play better against quarterbacks like that. And then he said, no, I got to play better. And then he was kind of like, well, what can I do? Like, I guess I could close in faster. I guess.
Right.
So it's just tough, but it is week 1. They'll try to figure out. And like you mentioned, Victor, on the whole preseason thing, like Bobby Wagner didn't get to play with this new defense. I know Troy Hill had an interception. Victor, they got 3 takeaways in the freaking first half, and they
Yeah,
they barely managed to tie the game. Like, you should be up big, maybe, or at least a touchdown or 10 points with 3 takeaways. But Troy Hill was new. They went with 3 safeties to start the game. David Long was struggling out there. So it was a lot of kind of different formations and fronts that were playing. And maybe when you're doing that much, you want to get a game in, I guess. You're probably right, Victor. So the defense got affected. Aaron Donald, had that 1 sack, but he didn't really feel like he was in that game. It didn't feel like a dominant Aaron Donald game. And obviously, we already talked about Ramsey there. So, yeah, it's they took one on the chin. This Bills offense definitely took it to them.
yeah. Well, with that, with you filled up all the questions I was gonna have for you. So let me just finally, just because we have to go. I know you're there at SoFi, and you finish your story, but you also got to get on the road. So
Yeah.
home. Let me ask you, what are your final thoughts on the Rams' loss to the Bills tonight?
I guess what sticks to me the most, like Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's great for a reason, and you're gonna have days like that. It's like when you're playing like a Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. You got to pretty much guarantee 30 to 35 points. You got to eat that. I'm going back to the offense. Like, how does an offense? It was supposed to keep. If it went to a track meet, you get to keep pace because you have Cooper Cup, Allen Robinson, and Matthew Stafford. And I don't know where this offense feels very thin, Victor. I don't know. It's weird how one game changes everything, but you don't want to fall into that trap of, one game kind of thing. So, go back. Handle your business against the Falcons. Score up the points, light it up, get Allen Robinson involved. That is my biggest thing I take away is how poorly this offense played. And it was funny, Victor, because I think in the final drive of the third quarter for the Bills, I found a stat where like the passing attempt for Stafford was like only 6 yards. The rushing attempt was like 3 yards. And I'm like, I'm,
Mhm.
I'm writing my story on deadline. I'm like, okay, it's still 3 minutes to go. I could just write in my story heading into the fourth quarter. That's how bad these
Yeah.
numbers were. And they didn't give the ball back the Bills because it was so sure that they weren't gonna change my stats there. So going into the third quarter to have only 130 total yards was really eye opening for this offense.
Yeah, the Bills had like 400 and something, and they were up by 3 touchdowns at that
They,
point
they
in the
ran for
third
100.
quarter.
They ran for 121, and it didn't feel like it, but they did.
Yeah. And Josh Allen was the leading rusher and the leading passer. So, I mean, it was total domination. Like, yeah, it was 10-10 at the half, but the Bills just, they dominated tonight's game. There was like no, but before you go, plug your stuff so that way, and then let the people know what we got coming up.
Yeah, first of all, I know it's a big loss. A lot of people are not really antsy to talk. We don't have a lot of comments today besides Dan and Dago. Nice little
Right. I saw that.
troll job there, Danny Ramirez. But thank you for watching and being
Yeah.
interactive here. But hopefully we could keep this going. And when there's some wins and maybe the game is a little earlier, we get more people involved. So hopefully, if you're watching the recorded version of this, the replay, hopefully you enjoyed it. We try to keep it honest and real and kind of give you a point of view from what I'm seeing in the locker room, what Victor is seeing on TV. So hopefully you enjoyed this quick post game show. It's our first one. So if you did, subscribe to the channel, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But I'm excited. We did it, Victor. We made it to week one. We finished week one. I know it wasn't what
Hey,
Rams fans
the
wanted.
season's here,
Yeah,
man. We
it's here.
got we got NFL. Like we can enjoy the rest of the weekend and watch some games. So hey, the NFL's back. That's the number one thing. That's what we that should be our biggest takeaway. The NFL is back.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Dan and Dago sweat throughout the Chargers Raider game. You too, Victor. You guys should trash talk. But I'm looking forward to the weekend. Definitely. I'm tired, man.
Yeah, you look like it. But with that, let's let you get on the road, and we'll let you end the show.
Ya nos vamos, pues. Vámonos.